Okay, can we start? Is anyone here? Just answer if you can hear me.
Yes, it's okay.
Perfect. So the last lecture for today is writing a scientific article. So this part is actually this comes at the end of the research process, even though this is the only part that is visible to a reader. So a reader doesn't see how you read the literature, how you spent time on data collecting, on data analysis, and so on. They only see your words in your research paper. So that is why writing is very important. Actually, it's being able to communicate your findings to others through the process of presenting the research, whether in the form of a report, dissertation, journal article, conference paper, or other similar formats. It doesn't matter how wide your reading has been or how good your data collection is. If the report or your research article is poorly written, then you will not manage to publish it, actually. That is why writing is very, very important. For the background, the majority of scientific journals follow the IMRAD format. That stands for Introduction, Methods, Results, and Discussion format. There are some exceptions, but mostly scientific sport and kinesiology journals are based on this format. So we will only discuss this format in this lecture. So this is how it looks like. The structure of one article should contain, in this following order, introduction, methods, results, and discussion section. To this, it will be added the abstract, which is actually a summary of your main findings, and the title. Also, at the end, you must state your references, tables, legends to figures, and so on. There are also some other optional sections, such as acknowledgements, conflicts of interest, contributions, or funding information. All of these potential optional sections are listed in the instructions for authors in each of the journals you aim to publish in. So those sections are mainly not obligatory, but the introduction, methods, results, discussion are always listed as an obligatory part of the paper. I usually like to put it more graphically because you can now see how actually the structure of the paper should look like and what those parts are related to. So, for example, introduction answers to the question, why? Why are you conducting this research? What is the context of your paper? How does it fit within your research topic? And what is the research question? So the introduction follows that, if you remember from yesterday, the research process stages. So this stage is about your topic and research question. Later on, we have to discuss about how will you answer those questions you stated in the introduction section, or what did the authors do to answer the research question. After that, you will have the results section. What was the answer to the question? So through your data analysis and obtaining the results, you will be able to answer your question. And usually this is done through tables or through figures which are representing your data and the results of your data. So that is what. And discussion is about so what. So what we can do with these results? How can it help in finding the idea how to solve our research question, and and what was actually the answer to your research question? What is the significance of your research project is also answered in the discussion. And one of the most important parts is how does it fit with previous research done on the similar topic. So discussion should contain all of those information, and we will talk about it in more detail later. To start off is writing the introduction section. So every paper starts with this section. I will tell you why is this so. So the introduction is actually meant to grab the reader's attention. You should, in this section, show that you are an expert in this field that you are talking about. You should explain why you did your study, what you aim to achieve with your study, and you should aim to discuss what was known, what else should be done to answer your research question. Generally, when I write the introduction, I follow some questions, and the answer to each of those, for example, 4 questions, as I stated here, would make 1 or maximally 2 paragraphs of the introduction. So I usually start with introducing the topic you are writing about, what is your topic and why it is interesting or why it is important at the moment. The second paragraph would be about providing background and actually listing the existing research. But this should only be done briefly, because you are not, for this example, you are not writing a review article, but an original piece of paper. So that's why you should summarize only previous research which is more relevant to your topic, to your selected research topic. The third one is to identify the areas where there is still some issues or conflicting findings. This will logically lead to description of gap in the knowledge that your study hopes to fill, or the answers you hope to find, and or questions you hope to find an answer on, and also the essential element of this section, or third paragraph, let's say so, is justifying the utility of your work. Why is it important? How will it add to the existing literature or existing previous researches? And for the last paragraph of the introduction, you should provide how to solve those mentioned issues and state objectives of your research or aims, and hypotheses, what you expect that you will find in your research. So all of these four topics should be answered in your introduction, but briefly. Do not write explicitly. As I said, this second section, you should aim to find only the most relevant previous research, upon which you will build your own story. A few useful tips for writing introduction. So you have to always keep in mind what your aim is of your research, and make sure your introduction actually supports it. So if, for example, if you aim to find the levels of physical activity in adolescence, in the introduction section, you will not write about levels of physical activity in older populations, because it is not, even though it's similar topic, it is not relevant to your paper. Then you should catch the reader's attention and remember to keep it interesting. This is actually the very hard task to do, because you usually, when you review the literature and start writing the introduction, you may end up in finding hundreds of papers on your topic, and you may end up lost in all of this literature, and that's when writers usually just put their thoughts randomly, and then it looks like very messy. So you should aim to keep your focus on your topic and try to keep it as more interesting as possible. Then you should demonstrate about your knowledge or expertise on your subject, and express appropriate theoretical background and literature, as we mentioned before. So again, it has to be focused. Don't write excessively, don't create lengthy paragraphs, and don't use too many quotes. We'll go back to these lengthy paragraphs. Recently, I got one research article for review. So one journal sent to me that article, so I can make a review for those authors. And they, for example, for the introduction, it was 3 pages of introduction. They stated all that is necessary, but for example, their 3 paragraphs could be created into 1. So it should be more briefly explained. Why? Because when you write lengthy paragraphs, then readers get lost in your text. This is also a graphical presentation of the introduction. So the first stage is to answer what is known. Second stage is to answer what is unknown, what is the gap we want to fill with our research. And the third stage is how and why we should fill this identified gap. Okay, now we go to the example. It is the same as our second example from yesterday, if you remember. So if anyone has it open now, it will be easier to follow what I will present you in the several following slides. So this is the example of introducing the topic and catching the reader's attention. As you can see here, just a second. Okay, so the first 2 sentences are like alarming. So only 81% of children and adolescents do not have sufficient levels of physical activity. Accordingly, physical fitness of adolescents is also very low, as it has different connections with physical activity. And consequently, it leads to the conclusion that a more complex construct is related to physical activity engagement, and this concept is called physical literacy. So with this paragraph, it is short, but it has everything that you need to catch the reader's attention. You stated about low physical activity, why it is a very important and emerging problem in nowadays. The relation to physical fitness, and that physical literacy is something which should be in the background of these issues. So that's only one paragraph which caught your attention. Then you should provide theoretical background and summarize existing research. For example, at this paper, we stated that physical literacy may facilitate an increase in physical activity, which directly or indirectly impacts health through better physical fitness. So we stated here several studies which promoted physical activity in the context of promoting health in adolescence. And then we aim to identify the areas where there is still some issues or conflicting findings. For this example, we stated that physical literacy is not included in Croatian physical education curriculum, and that physical literacy is actually a completely new construct in Croatia, and physical education teachers are not sufficiently or at all aiming to improve it. And why is it important? Because physical literacy, as we stated before in previous paragraphs, physical literacy is construct which is related to lifelong physical activity and good physical fitness. So that's the area where there is some issues to fill in. And in this last paragraph, we are providing the solutions for this issue and stating aims and hypotheses of our research. I will just read this sentence. Therefore, it is crucial to change the perspective and focus of alternative concepts in the physical education curriculum, which may include orienting toward physical literacy as an important determinant of overall health. As a first step, it is necessary to evaluate the applicability of the physical literacy concept in the specific environment in the territory, while highlighting currently used standards of achievement within the physical education curriculum. So as you can see here, we provided the solution to this issue. So we should introduce physical literacy in physical education curriculum. And now we are stating the aims. First one is to evaluate the reliability and applicability of the Croatian physical literacy questionnaires, and to determine the associations between the cognitive and affective domains of physical literacy. I will not go in deep depth with this, but just for your information. So about associations between physical literacy and health-related physical fitness. So this is aims and objectives of this research. In all of these 4 paragraphs, you stated everything that you should answer in the discussion section. Okay, now I will have a brief task for you, not so brief. You should write a short introduction draft, solely draft, for the following topic. Physical literacy is associated with physical activity levels in elementary school students from Croatia. So you should only write notes, not full sentences, just notes, first paragraph, second paragraph, third, and aims and hypotheses of your research. So I will just go back with this. First paragraph looks like this, second, third, and fourth. Please try to write it in the chat. You will have 10 minutes and then we will discuss about possible solutions to this task. Can please just someone answer that it is clear and that you will do the task?
Barbara, it is clear, but I'm on my mobile phone and it will took me a long time for writing.
Okay, no problem. Anyone else? Please just try to write it. We will have 10 minutes and then we will go through it briefly and move on with the presentation. I'm here for any questions. Okay, great. Now we can move on. So Petra wrote first, what is physical literacy? Great, introducing your topic. Elementary school describe population of elementary school. What we know about their levels of physical activity so far and about physical literacy, perfect. What we know about association between physical activity and physical literacy so far, and our aim. And Josip wrote physical literacy definition. Okay, great. Relevance in Croatia. In Croatia, physical literacy is vital for students, offering improved health and well-being. Research focus study explores the link between physical literacy and physical activity in Croatian elementary students. Significance: this research aims to enhance students' well-being and identify potential barriers to physical literacy. Conclusion of introduction: presenting the thesis statement which serves as a major. Okay, so those two examples, well done. Petra and Josip are pretty much doing this. So you first introduced what is physical literacy, how is it related to physical activity, then what are the research done on the topic in Croatia, or why they are lacking, and why should we fill the gap to actually see the association between physical activity and physical literacy in elementary school students. So that's the main concept of introduction: introducing and grabbing readers' attention, creating objectives, and that's it. Simple as that. Then we go to the next stage, which is writing methods. This is important aspect of a research paper. I wouldn't say the most important, as it stays here, because all the stages of the research paper are important, but this is important because it provides the information by which the validity of a study is ultimately judged. Therefore, you should provide a clear and precise description of how study was done and the rationale for the specific procedures which you chose. This leads to this next topic. So the method's main aim is to write it with enough information so that the study could be repeated by other researchers, and we should aim to evaluate whether results can be reproduced again. Then the audience can judge whether the results and conclusions are valid. It's very important in the methods section to be detailed, to write it in details. That means that it's not enough to write, okay, we measured physical activity. How, with what, on whom, and other questions should be clearly stated in this section. And it is also important to use the past tense. So something was measured, something was evaluated, participants were investigated, and so on. Typical sections of the methods consist of, firstly, design of the study. So you aim to describe what is the design of your research. Is it longitudinal? Is it experimental? Is it cross-sectional? And so on, as we mentioned yesterday, different designs of the study. Then you should describe your participants. Who were your participants, or subjects, or patients, or something else? And also you should state your ethical considerations. Then your procedures and measurement variables should be clearly stated and described. And the last section is statistical analysis, which you will do with your data. We will go through each of these sections in more detail now. So the design of the study, it should be the first sentence of your methods section, and it's important to mention that any unusual methodology for the design of the study should be clearly stated and referenced. Why you used your methodology. It should be really described in detail. Then participants, you should aim to describe your participants also detailedly. That includes the dropout rate, where you included or excluded some participants. For example, inclusion should be something like, if you aim to investigate youth athletes, your inclusion criteria could be, for example, athletes should be involved in organized sport training for at least 2 years. For example, this is inclusion criteria, and the example for exclusion criteria should be something like, we excluded all participants that had any medical issues or illnesses or injuries and so on, which didn't make it possible for them to give their maximum effort, for example. You should state your final number of subjects, and you should here state your subgroups. For example, you measured starters or non-starters, you measured successful or non-successful athletes, and those criteria should also be clearly stated. For example, in one of few studies we published recently on wrestlers, we decided to divide them into 2 categories. Successful wrestlers were those who won a medal at the national championship, and less successful wrestlers were those who didn't win the medal. So this information should clearly be stated in this participants section of methods. Also, with participants, you should state your ethical consideration. So you should aim to discuss about ethical approvals and how you collected the written consents and so on. Next, probably the most lengthy part of the methods section is the description of the procedures you used to do your research. So you will have to describe variables and how you collected those variables. You should specify the time points with the methods used to measure it. For example, one typical example is mentioning that you collected data for example, saliva or blood samples in the morning, or some physical capacities tests to avoid diurnal variations. For example, it is well known that also anthropometric indices is good example. Your body mass fluctuates during the day. So in the morning, it's not the same as in the evening. So you should mention your time point when you collected your data. Then you should provide the manufacturer details, name the city, country, and company. For example, one typical piece of equipment used to measure counter movement jump or squat jump is the optojump photoelectric beams. So you should mention what is the name of the device, what is the name of the manufacturer, microgate, and the name of the city and country. In this case, it's Italy. So all of these details should be specified in this section in order to be able to enable other researchers to follow your same methodology, to be able to compare their results. Also, very important section is to include information on validity and reliability of equipment or test you used, and provide adequate references to that part. This is also very important because some researchers which do not have adequate knowledge on this topic just state test they used because they saw it somewhere on internet, but that test doesn't have appropriate metric characteristic, and it actually cannot be used for scientific papers. I will try to explain it later on one example. And the last stage is statistical analysis. You heard about it in more detail from the previous lecture. So this is the final paragraph. It consists standard statements about presenting your data. That is, for example, we use quantitative or qualitative data, normally distributed or non-normally distributed data, presentation as mean, standard deviations, modes, or so on. Then you should specify the real, actual statistical approaches. Which test did you use for which types of variables? For example, if you compare two groups, and we will give the example of those wrestlers, you compare successful and non-successful wrestlers, you should aim to use t-test for independent samples, or Mann-Whitney U-test if the data is not normally distributed. So this should all be stated in the statistical analysis section. Also, the last sentence is usually the level of significance for the analysis. We usually use a p-level of less than 0.05. Also, you should state the software which you used to analyze your data. Okay, now we go to our example. This is also a study which I mentioned yesterday. It is about effectiveness of physical literacy based online education on physical fitness in adolescents. So first, you mentioned that this is an intervention study. So you mentioned that this is the design of the study first. Then you describe participants along with ethical considerations. So for those, I mean, you also saw this, how it looks like, because you published previously. So you should state the statement like this: the study was approved by ethical board of the Faculty of Kinesiology, University of Zagreb, Croatia, and the date and the reference number. Also, you should state that informed consent was collected from participants or their parents, and you should always have that somewhere collected, because a few reviewers or editors might ask you to provide them those informed consents. Then the next thing is that you mention your variables. We like to mention all variables in one paragraph briefly. and then start with describing each of the variable later on in more detail. In this part, you are mentioning equipment, validity, and reliability. For this example, we didn't use much of equipment because we measured physical fitness with beep test and so on, but we always used the reference which covers the reliability and validity of that use test. Even though it is beep test, it is well known, it is common, and so on, you should always put a reference on any test, and especially if the test is new. Then presentation of the data, normality of the distributions is usually the first sentence of the statistics section. Then all statistical approaches. For this example, we used two-way analysis of variance for repeated measures, as we had two groups at 2 time points, initial and final. And we explained this all in the statistical section. Then the last thing is to state the level of significance and the software we used. In this case, it was Statistica, software Statistica. Okay, now from the, let's say, good example, which got published, you'll see it is the same journal. We published this, I don't know, maybe 2 weeks ago. And 1 week ago, I got this paper for review. And it will serve as an example of poorly written research. I will explain you why later. So this is, for example, participants section. They used 20 children. They didn't state how many boys, how many girls, what was the inclusion or exclusion criteria. They mentioned it, but it isn't very detailedly described. Also, they didn't state the dropout rates, and all of the crucial information is missing. When it comes to variables, they stated, as you can see, few tests for motor capacities, throwing a medicine ball, walking on a 5-meter lines, running 5 meters. Then they used some cognitive abilities test named say the opposite word, finish the sentence, and so on. Do you see any reference on that? They didn't state if those tests are reliable or valid, where they used in the previous research, on whom they were used, because some tests can be used on adolescents and cannot be used on younger children, and so on. So this section also is lacking some crucial information. Also, statistical analysis section, it looks like it was copy-paste from Google. From my point of view, the student test is used to compare the means between two groups. Which two groups? Why? Because it doesn't give answer to any of the main objectives of the study. The first one is to answer whether performing set of exercises can lead to improving children motor skills or cognitive skills. So they actually did intervention study, and from this data analysis you cannot answer those questions. Okay, now we go to writing results. The results section should describe what you observed, but without commenting or discussing your results at this moment. So you don't you shouldn't use words such as surprisingly, we found out that something happened. Interestingly, we found out something. So you must describe a result for every method that was outlined in the methods section. Also, we used to follow this advice to present the results in the same order as the methods or the statistical analysis we included in the previous section because it is so much easier to follow the paper this way. Typically, a paragraph of the results section starts by recalling the type of analysis you used. For example, ANOVA revealed that something happened and then detail the results observed, referring to the tables of figures you are including in your paper. Also, you should use appropriate illustrations, tables and figures. I will now show you why. So when you use tables and figures, it is of crucial importance. This is really major advice that you don't repeat the data in the text that already appears in a table or a figure. So for example, if your table consists means and standard deviations of anthropometric indices and differences between boys and girls, you don't state that boys had that many kilos and girls had that many kilos and they differed in body mass, but only you state they differed and the level of significance or the effect size you should state in brackets. So you don't use the actual numbers that are presented in your tables, because this is actually repeating the data you already presented. For example, tables should be used for data such as baseline characteristics or where variables are described for 2 or more groups. I usually like to put tables for example, t-test when I observe differences between two groups, because then you can see the means and standard deviations, the t-value and the p-value, and it is very easy to for example, compare your results with the results of other study. That is more easier than if we presented those data in figures. But figures are, on the other hand, useful in cases where the data is complex for presentation or it is not easy to interpret. I will show you the example now. So this is the example of tables and figures. In the first example, as I said, I'm presenting the differences between boys and girls, and each of those is described by mean and standard deviation. Also, the Mann-Whitney U-test scores are presented here, so you can follow the differences, the significant differences. And the second example is the figure, where you can follow the differences between physical activity levels, because those physical activity levels are scored from 0 to 5, so it would be hard to see the actual difference by only by numbers. It is better to provide it like this in figures, so you can, it is very visible to see those differences between boys and girls, and for the total sample, baseline, follow up, whatever your example is. And now again we'll go to the example. This is one typical paragraph for the result sections. So you are just reiterating your findings from the table. We found significant main effects for time, for body height, broad jump, and so on. So we are not, as you can see, there is not a single number in this paragraph because it's stated here. We just not interpret it, but briefly put the most interesting results by words. Also, it is important to mention that we also use past tense in this section because it's a typical scientific language for this part. And now we again go to this example of poorly written results section. It's the same paper I mentioned for the method sections. So you can see here that the authors are describing each of the variable, and they are actually just retyping the results from the tables. Children had an arithmetic mean of 90 kilos on pre-test and 21 kilos at the post-test. As you can see, it is at the bottom of this table, the same numbers, and just they are repeating what it is stated in the tables, and they shouldn't do that. Just stating what they observed, and that's it. No numbers, no detailed description what they found out, because it should be done also in the discussion section. Okay, now we go to writing the discussion. It is crucial. It is one of the crucial parts of the research article, because it's part where you interpret or explain the significance of your obtained results and how they fit into the wider picture of what has already been observed and reported on the same topic. So how does it comply with the previous research of the same topic? Usually we start the discussion with a brief recap of the main findings. So the first paragraph usually looks like this, starts like this. The results indicate that the study demonstrated correlation between this analysis supports the theory that data suggest that. So you should just start with briefly repeating the results by words, and then you should follow the interpretation of your results. We usually do this in a way that we state several most important results. For example, we have 3 most important results, and then we base our discussion on each of it, and we even make new paragraphs or new parts of the discussion, so the reader can easily follow it. For example, the first main finding of the study was that cardiorespiratory fitness improved as a result of physical literacy intervention, and then we will build our first discussion section just on that. We will not mention other results, and then we will follow on that. For example, it goes body mass index remained the same for the control group, for the experimental group, while for the control group it increased, and then we just explain why it happened and what are the possible theoretical backgrounds and our own explanations for that findings. That's how you should start with building your discussion. Also, you should describe the novelty of your results, how your findings yield new evidence or new contribution to your research topic. Also, you should aim to discuss whether or not paper has succeeded in filling the gap in knowledge that you justified in the introduction. And it is very important to mention here that that you shouldn't be afraid to write an article which reports negative results, as well as long as your study is well written and well designed, you should be able to interpret your data, whichever data or results you obtained. For example, if you don't get correlations of variables which you expected to get, for example, if you don't get correlations between physical activity and physical literacy in elementary school students, you should also write a paper about that. Not, okay, I didn't get what I expected to get. It is not a good paper. It is good. You should aim to provide answers on why this might have happened. Why have I obtained such results? Because each country, each social background yields different results, and that's why you should also interpret your data where you didn't observe what you expected, or you had some negative results. Or, for example, you did some intervention study and you didn't and you didn't observe any improvement. Okay, maybe your program was bad, maybe your participants didn't respond to your experiment, but still you should aim to write that paper and to try to explain why you obtained such results. So final words of discussion. You should indicate how your results are likely to influence practical or scientific knowledge. Also, you should indicate potential directions for future research at the end of your discussion, and we usually finish our discussion section with outlining the strengths and limitations of our study. This is one example. I will use the same one as previous. So discussion starts with this brief paragraph. First, applied intervention induced positive changes in cardiorespiratory fitness. Second, intervention group retained their body mass levels. And finally, or third, no effects on motor capacities were evidenced. So this first result, the first main result, was actually we included it in one separate paragraph, so the reader can more easily follow our discussion and the main rationales of our study. So it's important to mention that in discussion you mention what you got, and then you compare your results with previous research, and after that you interpret your current findings from your country's perspective or from your scientific field perspective. So you should firstly try to compare your results with other studies, and then give your own interpretation of those results. When we come to the limitations, we should know that this limitation is not what we did bad, what we did poorly, but it's about it should state the direction for future research. What should else be done to make the results better? For example, we in this study used field-based tests. So, for example, beep test, which is not so, let's say, it is objective, but it isn't so sensitive for measuring this. The spiroergometry is, for example, on treadmill is more objective, but it's not possible to do at 400 high school students. So we used this test. Also, we are pointing out the strengths of our study. For example, this is rare, one of the rare studies where effects of the education oriented toward physical literacy were studied in adolescents, and this is the first study in which the effects of such interventions were observed in the COVID-19 pandemic period. So you should also state your strengths and alongside with limitations of your study, which should all be aimed to point out the directions for future studies. Then after discussion, we should write our conclusions of the entire research paper. You should restate your thesis, remind the readers of your main point of the research. Then you should state what are the main points of your results. And this is the very good advice: wrap everything up, but tying it all together. So you should shortly recapitulate what you stated in the entire discussion section. Also, the last sentence, you should leave the reader with something to think about, or with some future directions. For example, overall, the findings of this study provide important insight into the relationship between X and Y variable and highlight the need for further research in this area. So you should always leave space for further researches, which should be done based on your current research. This is one example of the conclusion. So the first part is actually stating what we have done in this study, why was it important to do it, and in the second section we briefly repeated main findings, and last sentence was about future directions. For example, we didn't include physical activity habits, nutrition, and consumption of psychoactive substances, which should be used in future similar studies. So with this section, we are actually tying all what we have found together. Even though when you read an article, abstract appears as the first thing you read, when you write an article, you write abstract the last. Why? Because abstract is in abstract is actually a summary of your entire research, and it's actually the first thing that your reader sees. So you should keep your abstract short and focused, but still attractive and with sufficient information about your research article. So this is how it should be done. So first sentence is usually about the background. It's usually just one brief sentence. It's a statement of the main objectives and identifying the gap in knowledge that you hope to find with your research. Then you briefly state the methods, define your study groups, describe interventions and variables. It's important to note that you will not have enough space, enough words to explain your methods in detail, so you should stick with only the main points of your methods. Also, the results should follow your methods. Results also should be brief. The main results list your primary endpoints. You should ensure that you have given a result for every method you mentioned, and there should be enough detail to back up your conclusion. because in the abstract section, you do not have the discussion part, but you jump to the conclusion section. And it's usually only one sentence that summarizes your main findings and gives direction for future research. Also, a few points, you already probably know this, but we will repeat. There should not be references in this section. There should not be discussion, and there should not be figures, tables, or other illustrations. You can use numbers in brackets, for example, but figures, tables are not included in this section. Also, it's important to note that keywords should not be repeated from the title. For example, if you write about physical activity, one of the keywords shouldn't be physical activity. It should be, for example, movement behavior. So you are using the different words. This is important because the databases are usually using abstracts and keywords when you are finding the research you want to find. So when you type, for example, physical activity, it will firstly search keywords and abstracts, and then it will, based on that, provide you sufficient research paper on that topic. Also, the references should be listed at the end of your paper by following the journal instructions. Usually, you should aim to find the English language papers in peer-reviewed journals. That's why it's very tricky to use, for example, Google Scholar, because there you can find some papers which are cited in some foreign conferences and so on, which are not peer-reviewed, and which actually decreases the quality of that research. For aid, you can use software to organize your references. Mendeley is used because it is free, but for example, we are using EndNote because it's very user-friendly and it's easy to manage all your references. The title should awaken the reader's interest and give them a brief view about what should they expect from reading your paper. It should be brief, but still enough informative to grab your reader's attention. This is one example. So effectiveness of physical literacy based on online education, on indices of physical fitness. This is all stated what you can expect when it happened during the COVID-19, and that it was intervention study. So when readers usually see intervention study, they got like, okay, this is something that authors gave their time, and it should be something quality. And now I will just briefly tell you what happened with our example of poorly written article. It got rejected in 2 days. So they sent it out for reviewers. There are usually 2 reviewers, and all of those 2 reviewers, including me, rejected the paper because it was really poorly written, and the methodological part was very unsatisfying. But it is very important. Why did I at least mention this example? Because it was on a very important topic, and authors actually did the experiment, so that they provided a huge amount of time numerous tests and so on, and they didn't do the methodological part of the paper correctly, and that's why it got rejected. So you should always aim to focus on each of the stages of the research process, because each stage is important as each stage gives the final results of publishing your research article. And that's all from me. I hope that it was clear for all of you, and that you managed to get some new informations which will help you in your writings. And now, if you have any questions, please. Okay, I'll assume that everything was clear. Thank you for listening. Good luck in your writing, and we'll probably see each other again. Thank you.
Thank
and
you very
bye.
much. Thank you.
Thank you. See you.
Thank you.
Yes,
See
I will
you.
send this presentation by mail. Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you,
you.
Barbara.
Bye-bye.